Hi, I'm Audrey Sato. I'm principal at Sato Architects, Inc. I'm also the president of AWA+D, and I host a podcast, the XXLA Architects Podcast. So you're going to hear about how all of those are sort of connected in my own journey and why inclusion and equity matters. So, next slide. I was brought up in that generation that was told we could be anything, even the President of the United States. Yeah. Implied in that statement is a belief that racism and sexism are things of the past. And now we know that, unfortunately, that's not really true. But I believed it for a long time. And why wouldn't I? I attended these schools that were open only to men historically, and I was doing well there. But I was in my 30s when I actually stopped and kind of looked around and said, what does it look like to have it all? And I had started my own practice. It wasn't the recession, finally, I felt like I could steer my own ship. And I didn't know where. I just couldn't figure that out. I realized I didn't ever work for female architects. And with the data from design, Equity by Design, I actually saw I wasn't alone in that. I needed more female role models. And so I went out and got those. I applied for the AWAF Professional Development Fellowship and started my podcast interviewing women in architecture. And I also started volunteering on the board of AWA+D. And through those experiences, I got to make some really meaningful relationships with women who I admire. And I started to feel like I was finding my way. So in hearing these stories, it became really apparent to me that the practice of architecture is much broader than I initially thought, and that really leadership and success are not one size fits all. For example, Laura O'Neill talks about how she was put in leadership positions because she's a strong decision maker. She likes control. But Sarah Lorenzen, in running a chair of a department, decided that she really needed to find consensus, so she broke up big decisions into bite-sized pieces. I think these stories are amazing. And so I've heard stories from sole proprietors all the way up to heads of the government agencies. And what inspired me the most was that all of these really impressive women are really actually quite relatable. And so what we need to do is we need to hear these stories and we need to share these stories so that we're all exposed to a broader definition of what it is to be a leader, and our industry can change. So when I started out on this podcast journey, I thought, well, my audience is probably gonna be a lot like me. Female architects, in Los Angeles, maybe in California. But what I found was that in 104 countries, people of all genders were actually really interested in what we had to say. And so I'm encouraging you all here to share your stories. And really, when we as individuals pursue issues that are important to us and we find a supportive community, we can have an impact that is greater than we ever foresaw. Thank you.